Hi, I'm Alaska B from Yamantaka Sonic Titan. This is my drum kit. It is a PDP X7 Maple. It's not the fanciest drum kit, but it swings a lot of power for the price. I don't think they're in production anymore, and a lot of people first discounted or kind of ignored this kit because I believe the original was in a different wood and just didn't really like bring its game. But I find that on tour it's nice to have a cheaper kit that you don't have to worry so much about destroying, so you can replace it, and it has a huge sound considering. I've had other drummers who play what you would generally call much nicer kits complement the sound of this live. I don't necessarily know if it's the best in studio, but live it's served me really well. I purchased this kit probably in 2010 or so. At the time, I actually played another kit before that that was robbed by a band moving out of our jam space, and I never hunted them down because I didn't know them personally, and so I had to buy a kit for tour with very little money. And at the time, this kit actually has 5 toms total. It had like an 8, a 10, 12, a 14 floor tom, and a 16, but I only used the 12-inch rack tom and the 16-inch floor tom, so that way I can tune them in a kind of like a complementary tuning. The kick drum is, I believe this is a 20, I can't remember actually if it's a 22 or 24. I think it's a 22. My snare drum is a Mapex Black Panther. It's 14-inch, 5.5 inches deep. I used to play with a brass snare. Sometimes I would use a steel one for recording, but I found it didn't have enough versatility, so I went to my drum shop and they said if you're already playing a Mapex Black Panther that is like made of brass, then you should probably just switch to the wood one and you'll get the same feel. It has these knurled rims on it, which I actually like what they do for the rim shots, but I'm going to be honest, they don't work well for triggers because they're flared the wrong direction. So if you're going to use triggers on this thing at all, I would suggest making sure that you use like a D-drum trigger, something that sticks on the actual head rather than say a Roland one. They don't clip on here properly, or just swap the rim. So the heads that I play are Remo Emperor coated, both on the rack tom and the floor tom. And on my snare drum I play with an Ambassador coated. This is actually the skin it came with, but this is the skin I would use anyways. On the kick drum head I use a Speed Stroke 2. But I'm going to switch to a Speed Stroke 3 when this one is dead. I find that it gives me that extra little bit of tightness and punch and clarity when I'm playing double kick, but still gives me a big kind of boomier sound. My cymbal set is almost entirely a Paista Dark Energy set. My favorite one of the bunch, which I'll start with the ride, would be the 22-inch Dark Energy Ride Mark II by Paista. And I love this thing. If you take a look at the bottom, which I'll quickly show you, I won't show it for all of them, but if you look at the bottom of this, the design that they did is to have a darkened and burnished around the ring, and then a center to shine it up, and then a hand-hammered bell and random kind of hammer hits all over it, which gives it a very dark and interesting sound. But because the top is still like a fine lathe and like they cleaned it up real good and polished it, it still has enough brightness to cut through. I found for me, I like a ride that can cut but also can kind of chill out. So for me, this is the one that I went with. The crashes both match. I have a 19-inch Dark Energy crash and a 17-inch Dark Energy crash. And I like the Paista crashes because they're 1 inch larger than your average crash and allows me to get like a bigger, more classic sound in my opinion. On the hi-hat, this is also a Dark Energy hi-hat, though it's worn off its text, and similarly one side is much more burnished than the other, and then the other side is very raw, and so you get like a complex darker tone. I used to play with an even darker cymbal and it didn't cut, and then any brighter cymbal I found was just too irritating for the kind of music I play, and I found that this one was kind of the perfect balance between the two. Over here I have a Paista Formula 602 China, and this thing is wonderful. I have a collection of Chinese Chinas that I really enjoy because that's like the real China sound, and I find that most Western or like Western Swiss or China cymbals tend to be a little too bright and clangy. They don't sound like real China cymbals from China. With this Formula 602, it just has this feel like butter. Like it has the same kind of feel as when I'm playing on, like, say, I wouldn't say Wuhan, but like a Wuhan type cymbal, like a classic Chinese cymbal. So it gives a very complex, dark and musty tone that allows it to kind of take up a lot of space without being like so harsh and brittle. So overall, I try to make sure that my kit has like a balance of like light and dark in order to give it a more complex tone. That way I can kind of get that kind of John Bonham big beat when I want to, but it gives me the precision to be able to do some kind of like more metal kind of sections. For sticks, I only use one pair of sticks, and they are the hardest sticks to find in America, so when I go on tour I have to stock up in Canada. These are, right now, I think they're all worn. Oh, I have a pair that are new. These are backups. Yeah, so the sticks that I play are the Zildjian Jazz. I don't play Zildjian cymbals, though I like them, but these sticks, I've never found a replacement that really works for me. They're like thick. They're not very thick, so they have that jazz thinness, but they are heavier and harder, I find, than the average jazz stick of the same type. And I've tried other brands, and even if I can get the same weight and feel, I find they're much softer. And these just feel very dense, which means that I don't need to put a lot of work into playing really hard, but if I want to play hard, it doesn't like weigh me down too much. Like, I don't like big, thick rock sticks that are designed to take that crash cymbal, because they just feel too light, it's like the same amount of wood but spread out. So these ones, just that density feels really good. I used to play with the heavy jazz version, so it's a harder, darker hickory, and I still use those to practice because they keep like my speed up when I switch back to a lighter stick. But live, I find that these are the perfect balance between a rock stick and a jazz stick. I think most jazz people I know would never use these because they're too heavy. And I think that's why I have trouble finding them at guitar centers, but in Canada, I find it pretty easy to find them. I have a DW 5000 two-legged hi-hat stand. I used to use it to DW 3000 because it actually allowed you to rotate these legs, so you could put a third leg to your side. But then I switched to a 5000 when it started to break down after 7 years of touring. I really like DW. I generally prefer their hardware, which is why I also went with a PDP kit, because it's DW designed, even though it's a cheaper model. For my double kick pedal, I use a DW 9000, and I've tried using pearls. I've used an Iron Cobra. I found they were all fine. But with this one, there's enough adjustability that I've managed to kind of dial in a really comfortable feel. It's a short board, so like some double kicks I know are longer footed, and people prefer them for doing extreme blast beats. I like to have my foot feel like I'm actually pressing on the kick pedal, so I find that these give kind of really good one-to-one feel, even though it has an accelerator hump, so that the pedal is, the beater is actually swinging faster when you press than when your foot is moving. And I find it's great feel where I can tell what I'm doing, but it also is light enough that it just feels like I'm walking on air. For my setup, right now this is not my laptop, but we're using this laptop when mine's in the shop. I run Ableton Live, and inside of here I run backing tracks. Then I have a channel that's just my click. I have a tempo envelope channel so that I can change my tempo on the fly or in time with music, so that for certain speed ups or slowdowns or changes between songs, I can jump to a different tempo and immediately swing into gear. After that, I have a rack that actually carries a ton of lighting data. It uses MIDI and Ableton Live like fader data, and I use a DMXIS by Entech DMX output, so that I can control our lighting system directly from the computer while we're playing. So then for each song, all I have to do is hit a scene, and then the whole line will start going, and when it's done, I can just play another one. So I will have scenes that are just to shut the lights off or to reset, you know, so that if there's anything that goes wrong with my count in, I can always just quickly stop it, start a new one without stopping the actual DAW whatsoever. Thank you for checking out my gear. You can check us out at Yamantaka sonictitan.com.